Welcome to our next adventure with Criminalize 411, a podcast about anything and everything. Kim and her guests will take you behind the scenes, behind the story, or behind the bar. So sit back. Make sure your seatbelt is fastened, tray table in its upright position, all carry-ons stored under the seats. But for this adventure, electronic devices must remain on, as we are ready to take off on our next adventure. Introducing Kim Schultz and Criminalize 411.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 22. This evening, we have a couple different things we're going to talk about. First of all, I'm not sure if you've seen, Elizabeth Warren wants to criminalize false information online. Drug testing.
That's true. Oh, go ahead.
Drug testing for food stamps may be coming soon, and that was from 2018, but we're still going to recap on that. A new bill could strip parental rights from rapists. And, of course, our very serious topic, texting nightmare. How you are killing your relationships in 5 stages. I am Kim Schultz, and I'm your adventure coordinator for this show. Let's say hi to my co-host, Tyson Harley.
Hello, howdy. And so, we're just going to get to it, right? So, we're going to go right to...
Right, exactly.
Quick hits with Tyson Harley. Which, by the way, this is especially relevant because what just happened this last weekend? A big fight.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And the whole reason I go... Quick hits with Tyson Harley is the idea of Mike Tyson, right?
Right.
Well, you know the big British guy who won this weekend? His name was Tyson Fury.
Ooh, any relation?
Tyson Fury. Well, anyway, the guy he's 6'9", heavyweight. And when he was away from the sport, he ballooned up to like 400 pounds. So he came in at this fight at 270, fighting someone who is 6'7",
oh, a little shorter.
but like lean like a little bit more like a basketball player.
Right.
Real long reach, but Tyson actually had a 7'1" reach instead of the mere 6'11" reach of the other guy.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, it turns out the Tyson Fury was named after, when he was a kid, Mike Tyson. So Mike Tyson was even there at the fight without the face tattoo. So he got it undone. Yeah. So anyway, quick hits.
Or maybe some good makeup.
Well, yeah, maybe, but he's got the money, so he probably
got it all taken off. Got a new face.
I hadn't looked into that. I just heard somebody say it, and then I saw him. I was like, yeah, I guess he doesn't have that anymore. So, second quick hit besides that is that was at the local grocery store.
Okay.
On the way here, as I often do, the old
Yes.
the old joke.
Yeah, has to pick up a snack.
Just got to pick me up a snack real quick. So I dropped in, and on the way out, it's a good thing I'm not in normal Tyson hurry, because I am like a 97th percentile walker, and that automatic door is the slowest automatic door ever. I mean, had I not been paying attention, I might have gone through the door.
Oh, people have.
So on the way out, I get on, and it's like, whoa. I just slow down like a third my speed because it took so long. Quick hit number 3. A couple more serious things. One thing I've heard recently is something about, maybe you guys have heard about it, there's been a billboard campaign. The abbreviation for it is MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. Mm-hmm. And so it turns out that statistically, they're more likely to get to be victims of these various things, including assault and stuff like this. So I was listening to something about that, and there's a couple sites you should visit regarding this. It's very interesting. One is Somebody's Daughter -MMIW, and that's a part, that campaign is a part of the Global Indigenous Council. And just look into that. But an interesting thing about it, which I wouldn't have known, is that if I go on a tribe's land as a non-tribe member, they do not have the right, if I do something wrong, to actually take me to court. Isn't that crazy?
That is.
You gotta think it's from back in the day when they said, "Listen, you are not going to be able to convict our white people." No.
Right.
So in essence, so this is part of the problem. It turns out they're much more likely to be raped, taken away, this and that.
Right.
And part of the problem is, now granted, there could be a resource problem with the law enforcement they have on the land.
Because they have their own. They have their own, yes.
So there's already the resource problem. But worse, you do not have jurisdiction. They do not have jurisdiction over a non-tribe member, no matter what they do. Now, normal jurisdiction would say, if I go to France and I kill somebody, guess who? Now, they might have to extradite me, if I get back to America, but otherwise they get to keep me for the crime,
Correct.
right? And you can't do that. So historically, it just made me think it must be that when we made these treaties disingenuously, took their land and all that stuff, we just had this superiority about it. Like, no, we're the boss here,
right?
And you do not get to do anything to American citizens.
Right.
When normally you would say, well, it's sovereign. And so, yes, they can do whatever they want with someone who commits a crime on their land.
They have their way of doing it.
But to me, therefore, in a way, you can say they don't really have full sovereignty, because a sovereign nation can prosecute someone who does something to their nation's members. But it's very interesting. It's one of the main causes of this issue, because they end up having to just kind of hope that, like, what's it called, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they have to try to cooperate with try to get cooperation from other people to do it. Right. So anyway, that's quick hit 3, whatever it is, a serious one. And one other one, and I think we're going to make an excursion if we have time about this.
Right.
This is very interesting. There's a book out called, The Hidden Nazi, I believe is the one. It's by a guy whose last name is Reuter, Reuter. And Reuters news agency, spelled like that. And The Hidden Nazi is about a guy named Hans Kammler, who by estimates could be as high as the second highest in command by the end of the war. He was no less than, you could call him the architect of the killing camps. And he was very important to even how Auschwitz was even designed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And a very important part of the SS, which was, kind of like I don't want to say CIA, but, they're very special force. I can't think of how you'd say that. It's not the army. It's not the Air Force. It's that very special Nazi force. And you don't know about him, but the story behind this Hans Kammler is very interesting. And this book called The Hidden Nazi is about a lot of research behind why we don't know about him and what became of him, and did he get away with stuff. Like, we know, like, a lot of guys like Hitler and Himmler and some other guys, but who's the guy who went Klaus Barbie and some other folks, but we don't know much about him. So I'd like to do an excursion on that. But yeah, this guy no less than helped design even the death camps at Auschwitz. But he did a lot more than that. And you don't hear about it. It's quite possible and interesting that he survived the war, even though he, committed suicide. And then you wonder who helped him. So that'll be a part of the excursion.
Awesome.
And so let's see. And I think that's all for Quick Hits.
By Tyson Harley.
We still haven't done... We still haven't done the whatever production.
I've thought about it a few times and been laughing at myself over what I would put into it, but I still haven't actually done it.
Well, and so, like, you do my intro for this show, but you also do my intro from a Superstar segment, and that was so awesome. Every time I do a Superstar segment, which we're going to talk about, I always make them listen to the front part. I'm like, okay, so this is the tone of the show. I want you to hear the intro so that you understand how serious we are. And then I play the intro, and they're like, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, that's fun. Like I said, I got the old radio background, but don't get to use it a lot. So
yeah, well,
I used to produce commercials every day. And
yes.
write them and produce them. So
well,
yeah.
And so last week I got to do my Superstar segment with Heather Sother with Safely Sunning, and we spent an hour, and it was actually released. We're taping this on the 26th, February 26th, 2020. And so today her segment actually came out. So you can go back on our Anchor and you can actually listen to it. It's actually pretty cool about tanning but not just about that, because that's not what we talked about. We talk about growing a business and how she what she does to do what she does. So you
Cool.
definitely want to do that.
Cool.
Then today there was an article. First of all, I saw someone that made a post that said, "Square dance or polka? Why don't you do your job?" And that's all it said. And I was like, what? And so then a little bit later during the day, because today was one of those days where I was in a meeting and then I worked in the dungeon. That's at the CPA firm. I work in the basement to do taxes. And so I'm not on my phone because I'm just working. But I got on there and I saw this article and says that the legislature in Kansas is looking up to do a state dance. Like you have a state bird and all that kind of stuff.
I hope
and
they
so
got a big building.
they were
Oh. Oh, an official.
an official.
Oh, okay.
So it was between square dance and polka, and someone said, why can't we do both? Well, I shared it because my dad, when he was alive, has actually been to the legislature to make square dancing the state dance. Him and all of his people, because he was a big square dance caller. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, my dad would be freaking out right now. So I shared it. Well, a mutual friend of ours, he reshared it and said the same comment of, don't you have more important things to do? And
legislature, blah, blah.
yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, so this isn't like something that's going to take forever. It's just something fun. So then I comment, I'm like, we have a state amphibian, insect, tree, grass. Like somebody has got those. It's just kind of like that.
Yeah,
like a little write-in thing. And like, why are you getting so serious about this? They're not going to like make a committee, do research. It's just that somebody came to them and said, hey, now I don't know where polka came from because I've never been to a polka dance, but I have been to a billion square dances in my life, and it's such a cool thing. I love square dancing. I really wish it was more of a thing because as we get older, the exercise in it and the brain is phenomenal.
And you don't really feel like you fit into a nightclub anymore. So this is
Right.
specifically not nightclub dancing, and yet it's dancing. It's moving
no
around.
drinking. It's dancing, and then afterwards you can go have your drinks. But it's just a great time. So, anyways, I'll be anxious, and I'm telling you. That is just something that I would definitely go to my dad's grave, and I don't go there often, but I would go tell him that because that would just make him
That's cool.
the happiest person
You know,
ever.
and you said other states have it, but I couldn't tell you. I mean, I've lived in a few states what their dance was, but I'm not doubting you. I'd be curious how many people do have it, because like you said, they've got state lizards. It's no biggie. I mean,
Yeah.
they need to do important stuff too, but you
got the
expect that
fun
kind
stuff.
of silly fun stuff to
But-
come up sometimes.
So, like our city council, they're always doing a proclamation. Okay, we're going to call us Pikachu, and we're going to be Google, and they do that stuff. It's just to lighten it up and have fun. Goodness gracious! So we talked about that. So I'm sure that everybody's sitting on the end of their chair to find out if we're going to have a state dance or not.
Oh,
It's
boy.
pretty exciting. But also, the next thing is I love my vacations. Love them. So I've already been on one in January, which was a new one for me. I've never normally go in January, but that's going to probably become a ritual. And then I'm heading off to Dallas after tax season for Memorial Day weekend.
Nice.
And then June, I have to work. We have the NHRA drags coming, so I'm going to work with the food company, the caterers for that. And then we have the Heartland Stampede, which used to be...
still the O'Reilly Auto Parts Heartland Nationals, or is it
I
something
don't
else?
think so. I think it's changed. I don't think it's O'Reilly anymore, but I don't know. I just do the food.
Okay.
So, and then we have the Country Stampede moved to Topeka. And so it's called the Heartland
that.
Stampede, and I'm going to be working that as well. So that's June. July, I head back off to Florida. And then August is, I've got two festivals. I have the Slash and Bass Festival, and I've got another festival in Newton that I do. But then in September, I have a new vacation. So my friend Tom was like, doesn't take vacations. And I said, I know that you like to go home. You should really take a vacation. And he was like, yeah, whatever, okay, whatever. I'm like, no, like, I want to go to Memphis. I want to do a vacation, like, where I drive someplace. I love road trips. And he was like, well, if I went that way, I would go to the Bourbon Trail. I was like, okay, I don't even know what that is, but let's go. I mean, it sounds to me as if it's be kind of like the Hansel and Gretel,
That
and
is
they go
like-
out in the woods and you follow
That
Bourbon
is not at
around.
all the Trail of Tears. Nothing
Nope,
like
no
that.
trail. Well, you know what? After so many distilleries, there might be tears. We don't know. But anyway, so then I looked it up and I thought, okay, well, I don't drink bourbon, but this is the fancy bourbon, and I would it would be fun. I'm a thrill seeker, so I said, well, let's do it. So then a while back he made a comment and said, yeah, I think we're doing the bourbon trail this year, and then we're going to go down to Graceland. And I thought, oh, well, then I need to get to AAA.
You should go there right after.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Although it's 8 hours to get there, so.
Oh, well, somebody, and the passenger side person
would
can
be,
keep the spirit alive.
Right.
I get it.
Get it.
Spirits.
Anyway, so we're doing that. We're going to go do that in September because there's evidently some special bourbon coming out. And he was like, no, they only make, it's like, okay, so did you know that they will make like 500 of like, once a year, a batch of a certain specialty, and then only certain places get these certain
I didn't know that exactly, but I knew with microbreweries and trying to, just having events, I knew that some of the beers, have it's the autumnal whatever, and we don't keep it out for a long time. So I knew they sometimes got a little seasonal, but I didn't know
this is bourbon, and these are like $80-$90 bottles. These are like people freak out. So we've been showering for he's got a list of all the bourbons that he wants. So we go to liquor stores all the time to look for these, and you get into these conversations. So it's pretty exciting. I'm not into it, so that's kind of what I'm planning on. Is now I got the maps from AAA.
You said when I got here, not kidding, you showed me like 5.
Yeah, they're like
and
books.
So you're like, this is one I get to more plan. Is it just as opposed to just going?
Yeah, well, like I go to Atlanta. I mean, I'm just going to go to Atlanta, just kind of plan, and we eat and go out and hang out with my friends. But this needs to be, like, I need to know, like, what tour, which distilleries to get in the best time. I've got to do hotel rooms because we have to stay places and what we're going to do.
So the trail is like, just like you actually, we're not talking like a day trip inside the same 20-mile area. We're talking.
Yeah, it is. No, it is. So like we're gonna go down there, and then there's like, I don't know, like 32 or 25, like tons. But you don't go to all of them. You pick the ones you want to go to. Then you have to know what times they are, and you have to schedule all that out. And you're not going to go to all of them.
It's like geocaching for drunks. No, kidding.
It's like a pub crawl.
Kidding.
It's like a distillery crawl is what I would call it.
Well, the next question I was going to have about you talking about trip planning is, do you like to go A to B and then I'll do my stuff once I get there, or do you also like to go, well, let's see what's on the way?
So normally
that's about a 7-hour drive from here.
Correct.
I guess.
So
bam,
we're gonna leave like at 3:00 in the morning on Thursday, and then just drive straight through, do something, get our hotel room, take a nap, finish out the day of Thursday. Then get up Friday. When it comes to the trail, it'll probably be pretty much kind of like where we're going. Now, it's not going to be like from 1 to 5 we're going to do this, and I don't have time.
But on your way, that's a straight trip first.
So we're doing it, and we're going to spend 2 days in Louisville, and then Louisville. I forget.
A reason. You can remember how to say Louisville if you just think
I forgot.
You had too much bourbon.
I forgot I had like a lazy bottom mile.
Seriously, it's funny because, Louisville's a pretty good basketball team at times. And some commentators will say it correctly. It's like, no, you're supposed to say it Louisville. Yeah. Here we'd go, you mean Louisville? Louisville. We got Larrytown down the road, Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Louisville.
Well, we're going to do that.
No, Oval.
And then we're going to go, because you have to go down through Nashville to get to Memphis. And so we haven't decided yet. So we're going to drive down. And
Kentucky's north of Tennessee, right? They're right smack dab next to each
like
other.
You have to drive down to Nashville, which is like a 2.5-hour drive. We might do like the Country Music Hall of Fame, and then that night drive into Memphis so that we have 2 days in Memphis, because we really want to I really want to go to Nashville and like do Nashville, go to the Grand Ole Opry and go to the Ryman Theater and do some stuff like that. We don't have that kind of time.
So when I said A to B, It's not, well, you do go quick to A to B, but you're just adding a B to C, and then in between, once you get to your point, Nashville is a boom town. It's probably pretty neat if you go to the right thing. So you say you are going to try to do something there?
We're going to go through Nashville, and I figured we would stop and do something, and then drive down to Memphis so that we have 2 days.
Thing,
just pick a thing.
Not 3 things. Okay.
Because we'll go back. I mean, we can go. Nashville will be the next trip or a trip that we can take. And that was kind of his solution because he was like, well, let's do the Grand Ole Opry, but it's $100 and you don't know who's performing until the week of.
Yeah, it's always pretty
And so,
good,
we could get down there and we could be like, oh my gosh, and there could be tickets. And we're like, let's just do the Grand Ole Opry and then we can drive. It's a 3-hour drive. We can drive at 10 o'clock at night. We can drive into Memphis. I mean, we can do whatever we want. I don't set it up. The only part that's set up is the beginning of the bourbon part of where we want to go because he's got the certain ones he has to go to. And the end part of going to Memphis to go to Graceland. That's the 2 things that we're doing.
Maybe you can scout possibilities, but not actually
we haven't got that far. We're going to look at more. So anyway,
sounds fun.
The other day, we always talk about some of the memes and stuff like that, and we get sarcastic. But I did find this meme, and it had Kobe Bryant on it. And one of my friends has it as his little profile picture.
As we record this, it was 2 days ago that they did the
memorial.
The memorial. I haven't watched it yet, but the little bits I've just seen, like in the background, look like I probably would have bawled my eyes out. So anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
So the meme says the biggest mistake we make in life is thinking we have time. And I don't know, that just got me because so yesterday when I posted, I get to order the books, which I already ordered the books because I'm always on delay on Facebook because no one really knows what's going on. And I said, I get to order the books to go to on vacation. And one of my friends said, you're always going on vacations. You're so lucky. And my response was,
I think I remember.
My dad always taught us to never live for the future, but to live for now. And he always said, don't plan to have fun when you retire. Make sure you do fun things now because you never know how long you have to live. And I've always lived by that motto. And it's getting more and more and more and more and more because my dad died at 63. So in 10 years from now, actually in 5 years from now, my dad started getting sick. And 5 years later, he died. So I don't want to sit back and think that I'm going to live forever and end up getting sick, die, or crash or anything. I want to know that I'm having a good time. And if I can do it, then I do it. If I can't do it, I'm not going to spend a lot of money on it. This trip will cost me a little bit of money.
The interesting thing, and I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, and he did, from what I understand, he was very active with his daughters. He was trying to do a lot of things. He was trying to have a little foot and a little toe in Hollywood a little bit. He'd won the Oscar award for that documentary about growing up to love basketball. Like it was literally called Dear Basketball or something like that. But interestingly, you say that. I heard a friend of mine say at work that he had actually kind of not been close to his parents recently. They were at the funeral, but like it was actually a long time coming. Like when he married his wife, who he stayed married to, it's the same gal. She was like only 17, and they thought it was a little young. Vanessa or whatever her name is, and so ever since then they've been a little bit not super close. So we can say all these things, and yet he never really kind of made that closer. At least this person was alleging. I didn't really look into it, but when you said this, I said I have a cool cube magnet.
You did.
Instead of a refrigerator magnet.
Right.
And so I took a picture, and it reads like this. For a long time, it seemed to me that life was about to begin. Real life. But there was always some obstacle in the way, something to be gotten through first, some unfinished business, time still to be served, a debt to be paid. At last it dawned on me that these obstacles were my life. This perspective has helped me to see there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. So treasure every moment you have and remember that time waits for no one. Happiness is a journey, not a destination. So I kind of thought that kind of, laid over with what you're saying there.
Exactly.
And I do that exactly. I'll say, well, but I don't deserve to do that just yet. And I do the same thing with relationships. Once I have a house, then I'll do one. Or, when I had a crappy car, it was, well, once I have a better car, no one's going to want to go on a date with someone who has a car where the paint is falling off. So why would I do that now, And it's the same thing. Apparently I haven't learned my lesson, but
we're going to work on that.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I just thought that kind of followed
it does.
through
It's
with
the exact same thing, and more people live by that motto, the beginning part, and they don't follow through because they're always saying,
once I,
when I get this, everything's going to be better. And the biggest thing is when someone says, the other day they said, when I lose the 30 pounds, my life will be perfect. And I said, why? Like, how does 30 pounds make your life perfect? Are people going to not die? Are you going to always have a job? You're never going to stress out about money? Like, what's perfect? And they're like, well, but I was like, okay, that's not the right word. It's just like, I would like to lose 30 pounds and then I would feel better about myself maybe. Right. But life isn't going to be perfect. If
now is not enough for you, then what now is going to be? Because
when is it?
That's why sometimes it's like you can feel envious of people who you kind of think, well, they didn't think through and plan things. Yeah, well, maybe they didn't, but they're 25 and have a 7-year-old. So guess who's going to be done with parenting by the time they're 38?
Yeah, I was done early, but I had a child at 24.
Yeah, so, it's like, well, but once I make more money, because I don't make enough money to do, or once my car's better, or, I do eventually need to become closer again with my brother, or whatever it might be.
Right.
It's like, well, when?
Well, and we'll do a whole episode on manifesting, because what people do is they actually manifest the opposite of what they would like to do. Meaning, when they say, when I get a better car, I'm going to ask her out on a date. And your body, literally, you're not going to get that car. You're not working on that car because it's an excuse. It's just an excuse. And 2020 to me is the year of no excuses. And some of my friends are I was like this. I go, oh, should I write that down? And they're like, what? I go, this is the year of 2020. It's the year of no excuses. Was that an excuse? Because I'm writing them down. Because at the end of the year, I want to go through and say, this is everything you said to me. This is why this didn't happen. This is why this didn't happen. Do you see it? You see something going on? So there's always an excuse. I don't have an excuse. When I was raising my daughter, she was all about my daughter. But I always took our kids on vacation. I always took the kids camping. I took them fishing. I did everything that I possibly could as a single mom. I did it with my kids because I wasn't going to let them grow up and say, I never got to do that. They're only that age at one time. And you know what? We're only this age. You give the impression
of scarcity and that can become a mindset.
And you can do things very inexpensively and look like it's big and bad. So anyway. All right. Well, the first segment that we're going to talk about is Elizabeth Warren wants to criminalize false information online.
Whoa. And this is recently here in the last, I think about the last week.
Right.
Where this is part of was it a part of one of those town hall things? I will push for news laws that impose tough civil and criminal penalties for knowingly disseminating this kind of information, which has the explicit purpose of undermining the basic right to vote, Warren said in a press release. The stakes of this election are too high. We need to fight the spread of false information that disempowers voters and undermines democracy. I'll do my part, and I'm calling on my fellow candidates and big tech companies to do their part too. Now, my initial thing is, first of all, I'm a libertarian, and if there's anything that I'm constantly 100% always on, it's like, dude, you gotta let people talk, because everything else is pure. If you go look up, I have a law background. If you look up, now, unfortunately, we've left it with any number of exceptions, like the exception carves out the rule, as they say, but the basic of our First Amendment rights in the U.S. is got to be wide open, because that's the only way you maintain. Unfortunately, we don't really do that anymore. But if you go look up any of the justices philosophizing on it, that is the basic fundamental, that. Now, remember, you still do have things like defamation and libel and slander if you reach a certain point. But with anything public, if a person's a public figure, then they're wide open. You know, you can even be purposely across the pond. You can accidentally be saying something wrong about a public figure. Think you're right, and you can still lose a suit. Over here, as long as you're not doing it with
malicious intent.
Whoa!
You're welcome. I watched a lot of
as
Law
long as you don't do that, they say the public discourse is too important.
Right.
So if once you're a public figure or it's a public type event, it needs to be said. And the other thing I would say about this is that, listen, and it's going to be connected to this, the excursion we're going to have on Hans Kammler and everything else. I mean, I know about the CIA lies through their teeth all the time.
Well, yeah, they have to.
And so they have sock puppets who go on social media and say, oh, how dare you say that? I mean, you're just asking for very limited discussion that is controlled. Right. If you start saying, well, what's false and what's not false and what's right and what's harmful and what's not harmful.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and so when I read this, first of all, if you are a news source that is credible and you're citing facts and you're known to be factual, then that's kind of what you look at. But if you have some random story that is just seems far-fetched, we should be smart enough to realize that's probably not true and that there are ways to go and research that information. So when I saw this, I was making a joke. I was just like, what they need to do is just put on there, like The Onion. If you see a story from The Onion, they openly
People
are a
still get
satire, and they see it and they're just like, what? This happened?
People still do Babylon Bee. Just the other day I had to be like, Babylon Bee is a satire site.
Correct. But people want to believe it so bad. They want to, they're so mean-spirited. They're just kind of like, I'm going to, because this is, I can share this and I can make you look stupid. Who looks stupid?
So, about the social media thing, I'm fine with the idea that you try to connect it to another story. But honestly, when they do, they go, hey, fact check. It's not always a good connection. Humans are running that.
Yeah.
And so one of the best ways to check a story is to read the whole story.
Right.
Because one of the manipulative things, when you talk about what's false, what's true, and if they say, well, if it's New York Times, we trust it. I'm telling you, and I've taken down so many articles in this fashion, the headline may not really reflect the facts in the story.
No.
And so they're wanting to give a slant more like in a clickbait age.
Clickbait,
And then underneath, the facts may not really... And so does that make that false? Or do they get to hide behind the fact that they're the New York Times or something else?
Right.
And, well, but if you look in the story, we said, yeah, but that's not where you're implying with your headline.
Correct. So are you going to get in trouble for implying something? And who's the headline police?
Yeah,
who's gonna do it? But I think what they mean is it would give you better sense to sue. And what she's talking about here is how people are writing stories about particular people. So we're going into the political season, and way before social media, the political ads were wrong. People would have, the big paid sponsorships for these TV commercials, which cost millions of dollars to do. Social media is free. And the problem with social media is you can do 1,000 different stories. And like you said, you have people that are writing the same stories, and all they're trying to do is confuse people and make them irate and hostile. And either to go out and change their vote or do their vote or whatever they're doing.
But can I repeat something off her quote? I will push for more laws that new laws that impose tough civil and criminal penalties.
Right.
Like getting put in prison for writing something. You know the old sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? I know that's not always true. There's bullying, blah, blah, blah. But as far as plain old free speech, that's supposed to be kind of America's outlook. And the funny thing is, whenever the social media giants have gotten before Congress, instead of them getting their wrist slapped for what they really did, like privacy invasion, what comes back from Congress? Have you noticed every time? Speaking of who's the arbiter of truth, it's like you need to make sure those stories are more responsible on your. We now have censorship by Google,
right,
and censorship by Facebook, straight censorship, right. And by YouTube, because we said, oh, we've got to be more. Listen, the dissenters have a lot of truth,
right,
because a lot of times the mainstream stories are affected by what the power brokers want you to think.
Well, but it's like we're just a bunch of sheep, and I'm not a sheep. So I think for myself, I automatically, when I read something, I'm like, that's not right. Like, that is not even right. So then I go and I look for it, or I
honestly,
tell
you
my
should
daughter.
Never forward anything you don't absolutely know.
Right.
And if you have not looked at it, unless you literally start with, listen, I have not looked into this. It seems like it could be true, and here's my commentary around. But even then, anything that has any kind of a real accusation to it,
right.
You shouldn't forward.
Yeah, stop there you go. Stop forwarding the crap, because even if it's true, other people can find it. And then don't forward something from 5 years ago and incite people's anger again. And because then people, I mean, it's just
people are like, that's 3 years old.
Yeah, that child was already found. I mean, really? And she's got a baby and she's married now.
You know how I could tell? I just looked, I literally
looked at the
spent
date.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
Or I clicked back into this story to see if it said updated on top.
Right. So reality is that you can't, we can't tell people to what to write. We can't educate people.
She wants to, and that makes me mad.
Right, but you can't. You're not going to be able to stop it, because you can hide everything on there through all the IP converters and all this stuff, and everything coming in from Russia and Africa that's coming in on the internet. And they make it look like it's here. And then you get in trouble for forwarding it. Yeah. Who knows who started it? They can even set up somebody. Yeah. You don't think they put opposite narratives out just so people argue? They do. Absolutely they do. Okay, they'll put something that's 80% true, and the last 20% is BS, and they know it, just so they can take down your dumbass forwarding of it. Right. If you go, really? You really thought that last 20%? That's not true at all. And instead of going and finding the responsible version of that, you forwarded the irresponsible version that had some falsities in it, and now you look like a dumbass. And then they get to take you down based on that, because you and make it seem like the main part of the story is false. You can't really find. I mean, you can't go back and find the original author of a lot of these things, especially when it's copied and pasted and screenshotted. Did you see your story did a zinger on her too? There's a little bit of a zinger there. A little zinger on Elizabeth Warren. And I got nothing against. Yeah. I got nothing against any of them. No, I don't either. I'm not trying to judge any of them, but they said who falsely claimed to be a Native American. I was like, I didn't realize the zinger at first. I'm like, oh. Yeah, there you go. Well, a really, really quick story. Tom Cruise used to have a house in Topeka because he would go out to the races. Him and Paul Newman were big race fans. And when Nicole was in town, I believe that she was in the hospital or something like that. Their house is over on Wanamaker. And so he would go over to the bar over there across from where Hy-Vee is that just moved. People were taking pictures with him with their little Kodak Tele-Instamatics, because this is way before cell phones. This is back in the 90s. And our local paper wrote an article that said, rumors spotting Tom Cruise at local bar in Topeka is false. He was not here. And my friend who
Speaking of
got
narratives.
pictures taken of it, I'm like, that is what it was. They were trying to calm it down because his wife, I believe she was up in the hospital, and they were trying to. I'm like, you know what? Why don't we just not talk about it?
Power brokers.
Why did we write an article about it? That was dumb. Right. All right, so
what you saw and took pictures of did not happen.
No, it is not. So just go ahead and throw those away. So talking about old articles that pop up on Facebook, this one popped up on Facebook from 2018, which it says drug testing for food stamps may be coming soon, 2018. And the reason I brought this up is because we have some 2019 data to go with the people that did it. So in 2018, the Trump administration was considering a plan to allow states to require certain food stamp recipients to undergo drug testing, handing a win to conservatives who've long sought ways to curb the safety net program.
But then you look, and what's the percentage even then? Speaking of, and now granted, this, you can't say that the headline is wrong. It's just kind of potentially giving a misimpression by not being more specific. Because you look and it says, because it's handing a win to conservatives, it says it would be narrowly targeted, applying mostly to people who are able-bodied without dependents, and applying for some specialized job. So it's more like, if you're doing this job, I'm sorry, but you need to test your drugs.
Yeah.
So it's food stamps, but it's only some jobs, and then they said, 5%. So then you got your 2019 article, which says...
So the 2019 article was like 13 states spent more than $200,000 screening federally aid applicants for drug testing last year. Out of those people, which was 260,000?
Yeah, we said that... 260,000. You're talking about 13...
There was 338 people tested positive according to the data gathered by Think Positive.
Just to remember the proportion, we're talking 13 states. I estimated, based on the state list, about 40 million people. But how many of that are actually on the program? I don't know what percentage. So you're talking about out of 40 million, at some point or another, about 250,000 were submitted to drug screening as a part of temporary assistance to needy families. And of those 260,000, only 338 tested positive. But what would somebody say? Just devil's advocate.
Right.
Well, the threat worked.
It did. They're not on drugs anymore, or maybe they're not on drugs anyway.
Right, exactly.
And so there's been laws that have tried to be passed.
And honestly, it works both ways. Some people are like, well, I don't want to do
it, but you know
other
what?
people are like, well, whatever, if I do it, and they actually, I'm screwed, but whatever.
But the amount of money that you're looking at single without children is not as much as with the kids. And there has been legislature trying to pass for the parents of the children. And what really made me mad with that one was, okay, so I test positive for drugs, and so we're going to give my sister my money to buy it for the food for the kids. So the state wasn't going to keep the money at that point when the kids were involved. But here's the only thing I had to say is, for those 338 people that tested positive, did we provide rehab for them and pay for them to get better? Or did we just say, nope, you're not going to eat and you can starve to death?
Yeah, that probably not. I mean, I don't know, but probably not. I mean, they might have gotten a second chance, I mean, maybe they weren't immediately stripped of the stuff, but...
Right,
but I mean, if it's okay, we gotta test you again.
If it's
like
meth
Get better.
or if it's coke or something like that, you just don't go, all right, I'm done. So are we going to help them?
You can't chew because you don't got your teeth first.
No. And your
so
face
they're like, what they do is they talk to you and they go, you know what? You're going to need a higher percentage of your food to be soup. And that's how they interact.
That's right.
And
that's
help.
Right.
Well, we would suggest
more Campbell's. More Campbell's soup. Actually, not even Campbell's. Good value.
Right.
All right, so a new bill could strip parental rights from rapists. So
okay, this is a Kansas deal.
This is Kansas. This is what we did in Kansas. But first, I'm going to ask you a question. Did you know that a rapist could seek custody of the child that is conceived during the rape? Did you know that?
Now, would I have ever thought that? If someone would say that, I'd be like, well, states are weird, but that still would surprise me. Because sometimes there are loopholes and people don't fill in the loopholes with proper legislation. I'd go, that's not right, but I suppose it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case in some states.
Right. Well, they can. And they still have, in Kansas, you still have the option to go to a judge and terminate parental rights.
Yeah, so we looked at, so this idea is around the Kansas legislature is in right now. And I guess we should have looked up to see if anything else further happened. This is as of just a few days ago.
We couldn't find anything.
Yeah,
like I can't find because the story doesn't give me the bill. Like they should say SB something, and it doesn't say.
So we looked, but not for a really long time. So we just tried to find.
Yeah.
We just tried to look around this, and so this particular bill would give the woman an option to go through the process of terminating parental rights of the rapist. But hold on. We saw kind of a weird potential loophole in what they were meaning because it said even if the rapist is never convicted.
Right.
So that brings some kind of gray area, and we can argue good or bad, but it made us think, well, what if they are convicted? Do we already have a law for that? So that was one of the questions we had. And the Sarah Rust Martin, Legal and Policy Director at the Kansas Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence, said, quote, under the current law, we don't have protection so that person may never come back, that rapist may never come back and want custody, but they could. And that fear is what we're trying to address in this bill. It also, my first reaction to this was good. I mean, the headline, right? And then the other thing I thought was awesome. The bill would also let children of a rapist collect an inheritance from the father, even if parental rights are terminated. So it made us wonder, well, what's the current situation? Right?
Right.
And we had some mixed reviews on that because one place we looked said conviction can therefore go towards a finding of an unfit parent which would make sense. Conviction of any sexual related crime, like rape, and then that would mean that they couldn't. We thought it meant that certainly they can't have custody. We didn't think they'd have visitation, but we weren't sure on that. But then you found another one that says. And this was off of a website called RAINN, Rape, Abuse, Incest National Networks, or RAINN.org. And it said that no conviction was required. This is something that had Kansas-specific stuff.
Yeah, this is Kansas.
And that would limit, I can't remember if it would limit everything, but it limited most stuff.
Right.
So we kind of had mixed reviews on that. I mean, overall, what do you think of this as an improvement?
Rape. There's just so many different obstacles. I mean, you just can't just make up just a law that just goes, this is how it is. This doesn't say that a convicted rapist automatically loses their parental rights. It says it gives them the option, which we already have. Because it's already on the thing that says there is an option. I think with this, if you looked at it probably, maybe it means it's an easier option. It's a quicker option than having to go to a judge. Maybe it's kind of like, check this box if you want to eliminate it and then do it.
Or it just really codifies the idea that this should and could be enough.
Right.
So that when you go to those proceedings, you can point to, no, Kansas has clearly said that this is something even without conviction.
Right.
That even if I just claim it and I have witnesses to it and I've got you have to at least listen to me about it.
So that leads me to the part where non-conviction. So we already have parents, moms and dads, who use sexual abuse as a way to make the other parent mad. Okay? So meaning allegations when they're getting divorced, they'll just be like, I don't want to say anything, but he touched him inappropriately, or she did this to it. Then the judge pulls them away and takes them away, and they're trying, because these parents are fighting, they're just being idiots because they're not caring about the kids. Maybe, and I'm not talking about a true parent who's abusive. I'm talking about a parent who's done nothing wrong. We have other parents who have falsely accused another parent of doing something because they're freaking
Divorce
crazy.
Gets heated.
They're crazy.
And even if they're not crazy 99% of the time, when they're losing...
That's right.
There's a couple... when they're losing what they thought was going to be a lifelong relationship, and there are kids involved, and if they have a little bit of a, what you call it, bone in their body, where they want to put their thumb on you, kind of... revenge type. Then people, at least
something.
over that period of time, get crazy.
So
and say some bad stuff.
So you can bring this in, and it already said in there, is there a certain limit that you can say that you were raped?
We thought there was no time
and
limit.
I don't think there's a time limit. So Well, that was what the rain place
Yeah,
thing.
maybe it was a rain
So,
thing instead.
but if there's not a time limit and you've got a 7-year-old child and
10 years later, or 4 years later, 11-year-old.
you're getting divorced, and I go to the police and I say he raped me, and I'll go through it because they're going through the sexual abuse stuff, they go through the rape stuff, and he's not convicted of it, but because of that charge, can she get him to where he loses custody of the child?
Because it's going to depend on the matter of evidence probably
Correct.
in front of the judge.
But what I'm saying is that
contemporary claims?
But is it an option in the future that somebody could drag an innocent person through, ruin their good reputation? They've never raped you.
It's an option.
You don't know. So when
Depends
you're
on the
writing
judge.
these kind of things, it needs to be able. You have to think about. I always go to the opposite side. I'm like, yes, we're protecting the victims and all that stuff, but sometimes the victim isn't who you think it is. And so I want to make sure that's taken care of.
This is another thing of distinctions and what's truth, right? Because what's the headline say? It says, new bill could strip parental rights from rapists. What important distinction did we find that probably should have been a part of the headline of people who are not convicted
right.
of rape?
Not, yeah.
Kind of puts a different spin on it.
Right.
But it's certainly, regardless, an important distinction.
Because how are you a
Because you might
rapist?
read that as meaning convicted, and you're going
Right.
to forward that, go, yes, absolutely. And it's like, well, that's not what it means. It does mean if convicted, but it also means potentially if not convicted.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing that we found, which is probably what's pushing some of this, which is fine, I'm okay with it. I'm not really big on the federal government using laws and money for social engineering. However, it happens. And in this case, there was some law put out, I can't remember if we remember the title of it, but it incentivized states to straighten out their laws
Right.
as regards the ability for rapists to continue to take advantage of their victims.
Right.
And so this is potentially incentivized by that, which is fine. It just means a larger percentage of funding for some period of time for a little while, or just more funding in general. Either now you're eligible or you're eligible for a larger share of certain types of funding.
Right.
And so probably a lot of states have done similar things based on this bill that I think we were reading maybe a year and a half, or was it late Obama?
I think it was Obama.
Yeah, so there's probably a lot of states that are doing similar things.
And so before we move on to the last topic, one thing people have to think about is, what about the grandparent rights? Because a biological child has grandparents. Yeah. And because the father doesn't have parental rights, is this something that would eliminate the grandparent rights? Because that's a big thing as well. I don't know what the rights are with a rapist, but it's a biological child. And if they have blood connection, there's still rights in some states of grandparents.
My impression would be that if anywhere in that line the rights were taken away, you couldn't go further up the line. That would just be my first impression. But then, to your point, what if it's an odd case, but if the mother is unfit, does someone biologically attach, even if on the... Oh, well, someone would be, because her parents would be able to, but would those grandparents have any rights? I would think no. And you'd think it would be weird that they would want rights.
It's a child.
I'm happy that my son raped that woman, and I want to take care of that child.
Well, I was watching New Amsterdam, and that's what happened. Was a girl had gotten pregnant by a rapist, biological, but she actually was going to, she was not going to make it to have the baby, but the family came in, somebody came in, and she had put the baby up for adoption, and then there was some rights and like the parents and this and that, and because she was going to die, and then they had this other things. And when you're writing these kind of laws, you have to realize that you have to look at every scenario. You looked at the scenario with healthy mom with parents. What if there's no parents? What if this girl is raped? What if she dies a year later and this baby's put up for adoption and the rapist is in jail, and the parents of this rapist, who had nothing to do with him being the rapist, wants to come and adopt this child? Can they? adopt the
Right.
child because it's a biological child to them. So
Right.
those are things that you have to think about as well. When I'm sorry, when I look at everything, I look at every single possible outcome of that. She dies in childbirth. She has no parents. Does the child go over here? The guy's going to go to jail. He's in jail for 20 years, but his mom and dad, they don't get that they wanted the kid. I mean, it's him, and now we're not talking about I grabbed you on the street. We're talking about boyfriend rape. There's just so many things. You can't just write one law.
Yeah.
So that's what that was my
related
thing.
to that, we found a related Snopes article where someone had said two different claims, and one of them was something about not being able to sue for child support, not being able to sue your rapist for child support. And that, at least Snopes, I'm not big on Snopes, but if you go read the details, then you can get somewhere. And at least according to them, because what they'll do is they'll slant, speaking of headline slanting, they'll slant it a certain way if it's something that they care politically about. And then they can call it true or false by picking the false version of the narrative that's out there. Anyway, they said there's nothing about rape not being able... the person who's raped not being able to sue for child support. But there is, depending on the structure of how you go about that, there's some kind of structural discouragements. Like, well, how much am I going to be connected now to my rapist?
Right.
Is he going to be pissed? Or that type of thing. So it's not that you can't, as far as what they found. It's just that it could be uncomfortable, something you don't want to do.
What about if you don't turn in your rapist and it happens? Remember the guy gave his sperm to the two lesbians in Kansas, and the lesbians broke up and they went to SRS to get on the food stamps and stuff like that.
I needed $50.
$50. Well,
anyway,
it ended up costing him a lot of money because they said, "Who's the dad?" And because they didn't follow the Kansas law, the way you have to conceive, they had to go because they wanted him to pay child support. So what if this guy raped you and you didn't go to them and you try to go to social services and they take blood tests or they figure out who this dad is because they're not going to give you services. Then they go after this guy that didn't even know you had a kid, and he raped you. Like, there's just so many different things out there. And
a lot of consideration.
So anyway, that's enough of that.
So it sounds good right up top, and then you're like,
and then you're like, oh, maybe we should think about it.
Okay, so now we're going to go to more fun stuff.
Then we bring in some chemology, yeah.
Still a lot of, talking about a lot of mistakes, but nothing quite so serious.
No, so a brilliant way to miscommunicate how you feel and misinterpret what other people mean.
Hey, hold on, I'm going to click, 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 click. Did you get that?
He just texted me.
What the hell does that mean?
What is that? What is going on over there?
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted your introduction just to be illustrative.
Yeah. So I'll say it again. A brilliant way to miscommunicate how to feel and misinterpret what other people mean. Text them.
off of the story called, which I love this headline.
Texting nightmare. How are you killing your relationship in 5 stages?
Ooh, 5. I like that they gave such a good number.
5.
Yes.
So the first things first, if you had $1 for every heated argument in a mental argument I have over a text in the last year, I'd honestly have Oprah status, is what they said. I do not allow that to happen. I don't argue during the text messages. It's an actual, there's not a conversation normally happening. It's kind of like a really simple one sentence.
Yeah.
If it's got to be a long one, I'm just going to call you.
Wait, you can't just call people. Don't you know it's 2020?
You can when you're 50. Now, maybe if you're 30.
There's so many stand-up bits about that where they're like, hey, you know what? Someday, instead of typing back and forth, you could just, I don't know, call someone and get it over with.
Did you know that the phone actually works like to communicate and talk? I know. So,
but there's this weird social aspect of not allegedly it not being cool to do so anymore.
Well,
don't call me, just text me. Jeez,
and
even though it's harder sometimes.
But our generation still calls because you call me. Like if you got something, you'll call me because we're doing something. Because I'm like, why we can't go through the show through text message. So you call or I call, whichever. All my friends like I'd have to say like 48. and older, we were raised on the phone. I don't have a problem calling somebody. But when you meet a new person, you're kind of like, I don't want to talk to them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm usually doing 3 things. So I'm usually working, and I'm watching television, and I'm texting. And so I don't want to call. When someone calls me, I'm like this. Fine. Pause my phone, stop my working, because I can only do one thing at a time. So let's go over this real quick, because let's see if
Step
you...
1, uncovering the 5 stages of ruining your relationships through texting. Step 1, the need for attention. Hit it, Kim.
Social media has turned us into people in need of attention. What? Not you. You don't want attention.
Not very much direct attention.
I do. I get really bored at night, so I get up on my Facebook Messenger and I'm like looking who's online. I'm like this. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? And I just wait and hope that someone wants to respond, because if I need interaction, I've been home all day long by myself working in my office. I'm like, I need to talk to somebody. I don't want to talk on the phone per se to strangers. I don't care who you are. I'll talk. So I do kind of want attention.
It says, so while having this opportunity, talking about social media and how we have this connectivity, we subconsciously presume that we can have people's attention at any given time.
Yes, we do.
And while this may indeed be true, it's humanly impossible to sustain all your interpersonal relationships in a healthy manner at this speed. I'm putting an emphasis on this matter, as I think this is a basis upon which a miscommunication is built. So
Yeah.
in other words, hey, we're so used to, like you said, well, that's okay if that person's not ready to chat, well, somebody is.
There's somebody. I'm like 5 people.
But when you convert that to text to a given person, that could be the beginning of a problem if all of a sudden they're not answering or something.
But
So
then we have
this
is feeling left out. Oh, don't ever do a group text and forget somebody, and then go around and start talking about it. And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "It was in the group text." And they're like, "What group text?" And you're like, "You weren't in the group text?" "No, I didn't get the information." "Oh, I'm sorry."
Oops.
So, yeah. So you do have that. It says there's a certain type of clinginess that we almost feel more predominant. This is due to the fact that we feel entitled to people's time. Now, that is true. There are some times where, like during tax season and people are needing their stuff and they text me. If it's not tax season, I normally respond really quick. But if it's tax season, it might be a day. And then they literally think I'm dead or fell off the earth or something like that because I'm not responding. But I'm like, I'm literally working 16-hour days and I don't have time to stop and add something to my day. When I go to my time to fix the next day, I'll send you a message back.
But regarding this step 2, they're saying now we're unfortunately trying to convert texting, which is not a good form, to a basic human nature thing around things that people want for their intimate relationships or their friendships, and that's a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And texting is just not gonna give you that entitlement of time very easily. It's not. They're saying that everyone has suddenly become stalker level obsessive, but we do expect more from texting than we can actually get out of it.
Right.
And so
we do.
That's why you got to be careful to go this direction. And if it's I don't know, how about you? So don't add too much value to what you're getting back from a text, because it's just not necessarily a great avenue for some people. As far as where they want to click.
I mean, if you would have texted Tyson a while back, he didn't have his phone for 5 days. So how many people would text you when you didn't have your phone?
They know better. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. I always entertain my sister when I haven't found my phone for a couple of days. It's funny. She's like, ah! I'm like, whatever, I'll get it eventually. Because my famous term is I misplaced it.
I misplaced it.
Because I haven't lost it.
I don't
So
know
stage 3. Now, stage 1 was the need for attention. Stage 2 is feeling left out.
But stage 3,
you are glued to your phone. Because after all, you haven't been getting that type of attention that you were hoping for, and that time that you were hoping for. with your people that you feel are important or especially close.
I was going to say, so if this has to do with like dating, like like people that you like in that way, and not just your normal common friends, but this is more dating. So the one up there that said the feeling left out about the stalker, it is kind of weird because you send a message to someone and you know how bad you are, so then you send another message to them and you're like, how many messages before they think I'm a freaking weirdo do I stop just texting them altogether? And then it comes to find out they're just like, oh yeah, my phone fell in the toilet and I didn't have it for 3 days. And then they do get their text messages like this, bleep, 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 bleep. Now you look like a weirdo. But then you also get mad because you think that they're glued to their phone and they're not. Even my daughter does this, but she'll like text me, then she calls me, and then she texts me, and she calls me, and then I answer, and I'm thinking, oh my God, she's got to be dead. Like, she's in the hospital, and she's like this, I have been texting and trying to call you. And
over what?
Like, what? Well, what's for dinner? What? Like, can you not, like, just text me what's for dinner, and when I have time, I will send it back. So when it comes to relationships, the first thing that I do in any relationship is I let them know I might not text you back immediately, and it's okay if you don't text me back unless it's something that I feel important. And then please at least acknowledge it. If not, I'm going to keep bothering. So are we supposed to meet at 5 or 6? I need to know if it's 5 or 6. But if it's a funny meme or if it's a joke or if it's like, hey, pick up some bread at the store, and you don't reply back, I'm assuming you're picking up bread. And if you don't pick up bread, I'm going to go pick up my own bread.
That's
and I'm still not going to get mad. You want to lay the groundworks. So
they say in step 3, glued to your phone, the whole thing is all of a sudden you're worried about the next thing on your phone, and that can be at the expense of face-to-face time.
Right. Hold on. I need to look at my phone.
Oh, my Lord.
No, I'm just joking.
No, but I mean, that does. It's like,
it does.
You probably don't have to. I even do think that about, you're just picking up the phone for some dude. I mean, for someone you don't even know. It's like, if in the old days, that means the phone's not around because it's in the house.
Right.
So if you're not in your house and it can wait, then why can't this wait if you don't know the person?
Right.
But,
and I'm actually addicted to my phone, and I know it because I look at it, and I just look, and then I lay it down, and I don't even know what I looked at. It's just a natural. It's bad.
Well, for me, it just takes away trains of thought, because you start down and you're like, wait, why did I open this browser? Because then I went to social media. Yeah. But they said because of all this, oh no, phone, we become a little bit more socially awkward while expecting virtual validation all the time.
Right.
And that can lead to misunderstandings and disappointments as well.
Yeah.
Stage 4, not intimate enough. Well, that's kind of what we've been talking about.
Right.
Our phones get the best of us because we are fond of...
You're fondling ourselves. I guess that depends on which picture they send you.
It is not true in the slightest. It's actually quite the opposite. Texting more often than not takes away.
Sorry.
Okay, I need to change my prescription, apparently. Our phones get the best of us because we are fondling ourselves and believing.
But you know what?
Have you not ever fondled yourself into believing something? Absolutely. Tending more often than not takes away from the natural way we typically tend to converse with each other. All of a sudden, it come down to pondering about why this certain person is not responding right away, which is what we talked about. Mm-hmm. Why is she using that emoji? Is that passive-aggressive? Oh, she's laughing? Oh, what's that supposed to mean? Well, it meant that she thought what you said was funny. Yeah, she's probably being sarcastic. So it's not intimate enough, and it's not specific enough.
No.
Because of this, we get the sense that we do not get along with that person well. We start wondering why we have issues, namely because it does not feel intimate enough. Because, listen, even if you're someone, and I can't imagine there's anybody older than 35 who just likes to have long conversations via text. Maybe there are. But the amount of conversation we've had today is like 3 months worth of texting.
Exactly.
As far as words. So how do you have true, detailed conversations via text? Everything becomes short, and you're also worried about, well, I don't want to make it too long. I've got to abbreviate, and then things don't become clear.
Well, so back in the Yahoo chat days, the mental anguish and the mental madness of chatting with people, it does affect your brain, because these people are telling you one thing and you're only reading it the way you want to read it. I mean, like, it's just horrible. So when we read these words, and you remember the thing that you whisper in someone's ear, and then you whisper someone's ear, and then it goes around and it's not the right words. Well, this was between two people, and you look down at your phone and you're just kind of like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, there's a parody to be made here, because even time can lead to all kinds of, like, if we're talking right now, what if all of a sudden you said something and then I didn't respond for 2 hours?
I know.
I mean, that can't happen if you're there.
Right.
So there's no confusing what the heck the silence means. Well, it could be that they're like, just wanted to say hi to you real quick, or wanted to respond to you, and they were literally about to get on the treadmill, and then go lift weights after that, and then take a shower. And the only reason it took 2.25 hours between first response and next response was because they already had something to do, and they didn't want to bother your time telling you what they had to do. They just put the phone down.
Well, like today I actually sent a text to somebody, and then I left to go to the gym to go work out, and I'm driving, and it's going blink, 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 and I get to the gym, and I put on my headphones, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh, I better see what they were wanting. So it's a good 20 minutes, because we were having a conversation, and all of a sudden it stopped. And I'm thinking, and they just kept talking and talking and talking and talking. It was work. It wasn't a relationship, but it was still work. But I'm thinking, I'm driving and I don't text and drive. So you have to realize that they're doing something, and maybe they're not. Now, here's the thing.
If you're with the person, you know what they're doing. Okay, well, they actually went to the restroom. That's why they're not answering.
Probably not.
Oh, they're upstairs finishing the burgers.
Right.
But if you're not, you don't
know. You have no, and then your brain starts going overload. They're just kind of like, what happened? So either they're dead, or they're with somebody else.
Or they're
and now they're with somebody else,
having sex with
and
their
you
neighbor.
and they have their phone. So you have your phone, and they're texting, and they're like, and you're like, what's funny? Nothing. You're like, oh my God. So now you're with that person, not having a conversation, because they're on their phone having the conversation, and you're in your brain making up your own little mind, and actually it's just one of their dudes sending a meme, and it's just just whatever.
Dumb
but
thing.
our brains go into overload with those dumb phones. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and just the vagueness of the potential between, like, if you were to say something right now, I said, yeah, that's true, but then we would continue to have the conversation. You wouldn't go, oh, what's that supposed to mean? Yeah, that's true.
Right, yeah.
You'd continue to have.
It'd be like, no, it was true, because I just said, I like hamburgers, and you're like, yeah, me too. Really? You too? What do you?
Oh, what? Yeah, smarty.
Or when you send
the wrong hamburgers.
When you send the wrong text message to the wrong person.
Yeah.
Ouch. Guilty.
But enough about photos over the phone. No, kidding.
So anyway, our last stage is heated arguments over text. This will never happen with me. I am not having an argument. I will go like this. I don't think we're going to get anywhere with this conversation. If you want to call me, let's talk. If not, we'll figure it out later. Night.
You were saying more functional stuff, not really discussing a whole lot. Like, hey, could you pick up some pickles, or do you want... Do you think Sloppy Joe's will work, or plan on being there at 6:30?
Why did you say I'm sloppy? I'm not sloppy just because I didn't have my house cleaned up. I'm busy.
Sloppy,
that was text
sloppy
message.
Kim's.
that was a text message. He was texting. I was texting back.
You know what's so funny too when you think about it is that what do you do? What do we do? Like, what do I do when I send a text? I fucking talk into the phone.
I know.
I use voice recognition. You know what you could do is say, talk to the person.
Like, call them.
And after that, if it misrecognizes you, you're like, oh, now I gotta correct the word.
And I have to
Guess
put
what?
the
The word was right when you said it. So if the person would have just heard you, I will spend 2 minutes correcting a voice recognition instead of just going, I will, man. Sorry, I don't usually curse on a podcast. But
no.
it is kind of funny, right?
It is
because
ridiculous.
we don't even type because we're not very good. I'm not good at swiping. I don't like
can't
swiping.
swipe. I don't
And
do
then
that.
as soon as your phone has some stupid memory of some typed word, it thinks it's a real word.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's putting in something strange in there like, time. It's like, I don't do spices. Why would you put THYME? Why would that ever be something Mine always wants to put something like fern. Or no, fur. F-I-R. So apparently at one point I misspelled F-O-R. And now it thinks I'm always talking about evergreens.
Right.
It's like I cannot... So I can't swipe well. I can't regular text well. So I end up doing voice recognition. Also known as talking to your phone. And then sending a written message.
And if you're in an argument, you're not typing it. You're taping it. Like you have your phone up to your mouth with your voice to text on going like this. Oh, you think so? I don't think so. I think that you need to get your ass home. And that's what I think. And the guys can just do without you. Send. And then the guy's like this. Well, good she didn't call me, so I can put the phone down and act like I didn't read it. Because if you have like an iPhone, iPhones tell you if they read it or not. They're gonna look at it. They're gonna be like, I ain't reading that shit.
I didn't even know it had a read receipt. I knew you could, like on phones, you could always say have a read receipt, but I didn't know it was
iPhones automatically have it through their iMessage. They're totally weird. I'm like, yeah, I don't want an iPhone because. I don't want them to know. It's like, but I want to stay out longer. I'll take the abuse.
This says, you can imagine, therefore, why an argument via text could last for hours or days on end.
What are you going to not see them?
It's like, if you're going to have a 5-day argument, maybe you need to reconsider how important the person is, because if it would have resolved itself by seeing them... I
was gonna say, if this is your boyfriend or the one that you like, then
now long distance. But even then, it's like but for me, part of the text thing is, and we talked about this the other day. It's just kind of related, but it's like, oh well, you know how you're supposed to do these weird rules. Guys are, and I guess girls are too. I don't know about. Oh well, just make sure you don't act like you're too interested and show that you like them. It's like what? Well, it looks weird if you look like you like them. So I can't just be honest?
I can't like them?
No, you can't call them. You can't just say, you know what, that was great. Great to talk to you. No, you gotta wait. What? Why? And then if you break that rule, then, well, I don't know, he's kind of clingy.
Exactly.
And then it's like, how does he...
They're like, oh my God, we went out last night, and then
it was great, but then he talked to me afterwards.
He called me on the phone. Oh,
it's
girl,
like, who does that?
You need to block his ass.
He's got somebody in his basement.
He does.
And they are not alive.
They're not.
Because he's like, hey, that was awesome. Hope I'll talk to you again later. Maybe we can do something else.
I could just imagine. I could just imagine the skit where it's just kind of like you give the kids good night or whatever, and then they go on their way. And then the next day, she's doing her stuff, and she looks down, and her phone is ringing, and it's him, and she's like, he's calling. Like, what do I do?
Yeah,
what
happened? That's part of my, like, you know what, I'll never figure it out, so for now, I mean, if a relationship drops into my lap, but I do mean that literally, I'll take it. Sometimes I will let relationships drop into my lap.
Drop into your
That's
lap.
about it. But other than that, it's like, I don't know. It's all too confusing. Someone's going to accuse me of being weird, and I don't have time for it. The thing is, once you do that and you fall into that, then you do the same thing.
Why? And I'm pretty good with like all my guy friends or whatever. like I said at the very beginning, I'm a very straightforward, honest person. And I tell them exactly how I am and who I am. And to say, you know what, if I text you and I do this, I'm probably just bored because I work at home alone. Disregard it. If you don't have time to respond, I'm not going to get mad at you.
Yeah,
if it's just a random, chat conversation.
Exactly.
Because with like Tom or my friend Tim or my friend Robin or Frankie, I call them. We text and we send things through like memes, but it's literally like LOL, nice, little thing, and then if it's any kind of conversation, we're going to call.
Right. So let's wrap this up then. There's a couple of things. One is, to your point, it's something else applied to a general relationship that can be provided to text, and that is a couple things. Don't play with, like, you're supposed to know what I mean, okay? How can you not read my mind, okay? It's so frustrating. How could you not know? But more specifically, just set out those rules of how you take text, and like you said, you had your rules for somebody, I can't remember who, and you said, listen, at this,
right. When I started texting,
how it's likely to affect you or not, so the person has some better sense of not falling into that pitfall.
Well, we started texting back and forth, and he would always respond. Like, I'd send a meme, and he'd respond, funny, and I'd do something, and he always responded. And I told him, I said, I just want to let you know, because this is new. This is just new, not in a romantic relationship, just a friendship. If you don't text me back, and if I text you something and you don't text me back, it's perfectly okay. I know that, you've seen it. And if you forget to do it, or if it's busy, or you just don't want to text back, unless it's a question that I need to know the answer for. And then I noticed that I'd send memes, and then he didn't text back as much. And I think that lets the stress off of him, because he doesn't know what he's supposed to do. So another girl might be like, listen here, buddy, when I send you a text, you got like 15 minutes. And I know you look at your phone because I'm with you all the time, and you're always on your phone. And that's what I am. It's like I'm always on my phone.
You can be at work and now be stressed about, did I check my phone?
Did I check my phone? That shouldn't even happen.
So there's a couple of things. Don't let that weird gray thing that women apparently have a license to do about you're supposed to know what I think get in the way as much. First of all, be careful with over-texting, period, because especially in relationships, because things get strange. If you really need to talk about something, be clear, and then maybe actually talk about it. But second of all, to the extent you have rules and kind of how this affects you, and you know that this affects you a certain way, then try to communicate that without being too needy or too demanding about it. Try to come to a nice compromise,
Yep, that's what I have to say. So anyway, well, hopefully no one gets into arguments over text messaging or instant messaging or anything like that. And hopefully maybe phones will come back around a little bit more for the younger generations. I don't know if they know how to use the phone. I
kind of wish for some electromagnetic pulse, like a, let's not say a nuclear, well, maybe if it was a small thermonuclear device over the near Pacific Ocean, so it didn't hurt anybody and the fallout wasn't too bad, but it knocked out all of our electronics on our phones, so we just had to go back to landlines. I think I'd be okay with that.
Bite your tongue.
Setting rules of communication here. Expectations.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time. We always appreciate our listeners. And thanks for making Kimology so amazing. Make sure you go to the Facebook group Kimology 411 and make sure you have joined. And today, if you have any comments, this is episode 22. So if you're listening to this, 10 years later and you just broke up with your girlfriend because of a text message, comment below. Let us know. Yeah, you might not even know it. Did you respond? Did you reply back?
She said lots of laughs. No, if you ever
laugh out loud.
Yeah, I know, but there's a bit about like the older mom who doesn't know.
Oh yeah,
and she thinks it means lots of love.
Yeah.
And so someone goes, She thinks it means lots of love. It's like, oh, well, my dog passed away, so I'm having a tough time. LOL. It's like, what a mean old lady.
Oh, Tyson. I don't know what I'd do without you.
See, it's so much easier to take your tone this way.
All right, guys. Well, we will talk to you soon, and please make sure to keep taking all your adventures. Bye-bye.